Hello and welcome to the Advocates for Angels Academy. And I'm doing a special presentation today for the Parent Brigade, which is a monthly membership in which we meet twice a month as a group of parents who are learning how to advocate for their child, learning their parent rights, learning how to appeal denials from school districts, and learning how to have successful outcomes at their IEP meetings. So this is a special presentation I'm providing today to the Parent Brigade. And after this presentation, I will be taking questions from the Parent Brigade members. However, I'll be cutting the video off at the end of this presentation. So if you would like to be able to speak with me, ask me specific questions about advocacy and about the trainings that I provide in the Parent Brigade, and get your specific questions answered about your child's specific IEP, then please join the Parent Brigade. And I'll be giving you some more information about that later and how you can do that. So let's get started. Okay, so this is, I call it From Emotional Parent to Empowered Advocate. So in this presentation, I'm going to be covering what is IDEA, what is a parent advocate, a healthy mindset, and secrets to a successful IEP outcome. So the individuals, let me just hide this here so I can see better. Okay, so the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act is federal law that requires school districts to provide a free, appropriate public education to eligible children with disabilities, which are ages 3 through 21, and in some states, it can be 22. A free, appropriate public education means special education and related services are to be provided as described in an individualized education program, the IEP, at no cost to the family. So that's what IDEA essentially is, parents. It is federal law that requires your local school district to provide your child a free public education. So that means if your child needs speech and language, if your child needs occupational therapy, if your child needs vision therapy, if your child needs physical therapy, whatever therapy services, programs, supports, interventions your child needs, the local school district is required to provide your child. And it's at no cost to you. The school district is obligated to fund those services. So the history, and this is, I like to give this because a lot of parents don't know the history of IDEA and how far we've come. So on November 19th, 1975, Public Law 94-142 was enacted. And it was called back then the Education for All Handicapped Children Act. But until that time, special needs children were excluded from attending school. So way back then, and this is when I was in, grade school back then, we didn't see, there was no kids that were the special needs kids. There was no kids with handicaps or disabilities back then when I went to school. They didn't even get to go to school. Okay. So, which is hard to imagine, but it was true. Okay. But in 1975, the law was enacted where they started bringing in children who had disabilities to the public schools, but you never saw them because then when I was in junior high, they were there, but they were at the back and they were hidden. They were in the back of the school site. We never saw them. They were in bungalows, okay? And they would never be around the typical population, but because of the law in 1975 that was enacted, they started bringing them into school because they had to, but who knows what they did in those bungalows? I don't know. I don't think there was a lot of regulations or standards that they had to go by, but they were there, okay? Then in 1990, the reauthorization of Public Law 94-192 was renamed IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And that's when more standards were placed on, okay, you've got to actually educate these kids when you bring them to public school. In 1990, they said, okay, like not like it was back in 1975 when they started bringing them in. I think it was just babysitting. They didn't do much, and they were not allowed around the rest of the typical population. Okay, so in 1990, they brought them in, and now they had to start including them into different environments. They had to start teaching them some type of curriculum, and things started rolling. Then in 1997, President Clinton signed the IDEA Improvement Act, which brought even more regulations onto IDEA, saying, okay, we're going to require you to now teach more requirements regarding curriculum, regarding math and reading and writing, and actually having some stipulations on, okay, they actually have to learn the curriculum. And then in 2004, the reauthorization of IDEA Improvement Act, which I actually flew up to the state capitol in Sacramento, and I was there for the reauthorization, and I went with a bunch of attorneys. And that was a huge reauthorization act, because that was when they gave parents the power we have today, you guys. Before 2004, parents didn't have the power they have today. That's why I'm so passionate about letting parents know, you guys have all the power. You have no idea what it used to be like before 2004. And back in 1997, parents didn't have any right, any say so, any input. They didn't give a crap what parents had to say. They just made all the decisions, and we had no power. In 2004 was when they made parents equal IEP team participants. That's when it happened. And so that's why I'm so passionate about letting parents know, take advantage of your parent right to be an equal IEP team participant, and that they have to listen to us. They have to allow us to weigh in on every decision that they make regarding your child. So this is so huge, you guys, because I just talked to a mom yesterday or the day before, and her kid's on a 504, and she's complaining about the 504, and I'm like, well, you need an IEP. And she goes, but I don't want an IEP. My child doesn't need an IEP. I don't want my child to be in special education. And I said, why? And she said, because I don't want my child to be in a special education classroom. I go, your child doesn't have to be in a special education classroom to be in special ed. And so that's what's so important about this slide, you guys. Special education is not a place. It is supports and services brought to your child. No matter where your child is, your child can be fully included in a general education class all day long, never step foot in a special ed class or a resource class, and still be on an IEP. So it's special. It's not this one size fits all, or this box that you have to go someplace to get special ed services or to get an IEP. You don't have to go anywhere. They bring it to the child wherever the child is. And that's in IDEA. So that's what this slide here to the right means, where, okay, here's special education room right here. And here's all the other rooms for general ed. You don't have to go to the special ed door to get special ed services. You can be in any of the other doors in any of the classrooms and get the same IEP as if you were in that special ed class getting a special ed program in a special education class. So it's not a place, okay? And so all these things that are said down here, which is really everything in an IEP, is available in any placement. It doesn't have to be a special ed classroom. Okay, so what is a parent advocate? So first of all, the definition of an advocate is an advocate speaks on behalf of one that cannot speak for themselves. So our children can certainly not speak for themselves most of the time, especially if our kids have communication deficits or nonverbal or limited speech and language. We have to speak on behalf of our kids. But how on earth can a parent speak on behalf of their child if you have no clue what's available to your child, what an IEP is, what the IEP process is, what your child's uh, disability is? If you're not an expert and you're not aware of what that is and how it affects your child's IEP, how can you be a parent advocate to speak on behalf of your child if you aren't educated and knowledgeable about those things? Number two, a parent advocate must learn the federally mandated parent rights under IDEA and understand how to implement them in the development of your child's IEP. And that should be number three. A parent advocate must drive the development of their child's IEP. So the parent drives the development because, as you guys know, the district's not going to drive the development of your kid's IEP. The district's never going to say, oh, I think your child needs more speech and language. Oh, I think we should get an assessment for an assistive technology device. They're never going to do any of those things. It has to be driven by the parent. And so that means the parent needs to become an expert on their child's disability and know how to meet their child's needs through the supports and services available under IDEA. So that's a whole big, huge chunk that, parents have to become the expert on your child's disability and know what their child needs to meet their needs and know what supports and services are available under state and federal law. And then the next one is a parent advocate promotes a collaborative, cohesive IEP team through professional and respectful conduct with district staff members. And that's what a parent advocate should always put forth in good faith, a collaborative, cohesive IEP team environment through acting professionally, respectfully to your district staff members. And I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that, what that means today in this presentation. So parents, you know your child better than anyone from your local school district. You are the parent. You know your kid. They don't know your kid. They think they know your kid, but they really don't know your kid. Because in school, our kids act differently. Our kids might be doing something far beyond what they are showing this in school, what they are capable of doing. Yet, if they're not showing that what they are capable of doing at school, then how are they supposed to know? So that's where, again, your voice, your advocacy, speaking on behalf of your child is huge. Because if you don't let them know, hey, my kid's already doing that, why are we writing a goal in that area? Your input and your weigh in on everything that has to do with your IEP is imperative. And then knowing your child's strengths and weaknesses in terms of academics, social skills, and behavior. So again, it's parents getting into understanding, what are my child's strengths? What are my child's weaknesses? How can we build on their strengths? How can we address their weaknesses in the IEP? And that's all in terms of their academics, their social skills, and their behavior. So a mindset, the parent mindset, is huge, huge in successful advocacy. So, and my big, soapbox is with parents is leave the past behind and focus on getting what your child needs now. If we don't leave the past behind and we're always carrying that grudge, we're carrying that trauma, we have PTSD, most of us, from the traumatic and just horrific experiences we've had at IEP meetings. Maybe something horrible happened to your child in the past because of the local school district. We've got baggage, okay? And believe me, so did I. And all parents do. But that energy, those emotions are not going to serve you in an IEP meeting. They're just not, because it's going to work against you and it's not going to get you where you want to go. So I love this quote from Albert Einstein where he says, problems cannot be solved with the same mindset that created them. Meaning that even if your local school district has a crappy attitude, if some of your people are treating you like crap, they're not respecting you, they're disagreeing with you, they're not letting you talk and interrupting you, they're having, they're being adversarial with you in an IEP meeting. It happens all the time. But for us to take the high road and not reduce our behavior down to that lower level of adversarial conduct, you are going to come out on top. You are going to get what your child needs. The end result is going to be you winning for your child. So what's better? Us, telling them off and acting like we would love to act like, I mean, believe me, I have, I see visions in my head of me jumping across the table and punching someone's face in an IEP meeting, but I'm still sitting there smiling and having a very professional attitude in my IEP meeting. But I know what you guys are feeling, but to hold yourself together, staying calm and cool and collected is going to behoove you far more than you engaging in arguing and promoting the adversarial relationship. Because again, what problems are going to be solved by staying in that same adversarial mindset, and that us against them that the district sets up for us to be in? It's a trap, you guys. It's a trap. It's set up for us to be adversarial with them and them to be adversarial with us. So if we have to be smarter than them, we have to come in and say, I'm going to become collaborative and part of this IEP team. They are going to respect me because I'm going to show them that I know my kid. I know my kid's disability. I know the law. I know my parent rights. And I know what's supposed to happen at the school district. And I'm going to hold them accountable to it. And therefore, they're going to respect me. And we're going to get along professionally. And the end result is going to be my child is going to have a great IEP and they're going to get their needs met. That is where everybody wants to be. That is a successful IEP. Okay, so taking the high road is, okay, so I think I've told you guys about some of the nightmare stories I had, and I know every parent has their nightmare story. So I know I've told you before about when Chanel was on the bus and she was lost on the bus for over 3 hours, and we thought she had been abducted actually, and I was beside myself with fear and rage and freaking out. So that's one of the nightmare stories. And another nightmare story, I've had many. Another one was Chanel went to the summer camp when she was in 6th grade, and Chanel has a life-threatening seizure disorder. Back then in 6th grade, she was still having life-threatening seizures. There was a nurse there. I prepared everything with the medical plan. I had a special IEP meeting with the director of the camp. We had the nurse, we had the medical plan, we had the whole team there. We went over everything. This is what will happen if Chanel has a seizure, on and on and on. The first day she gets there, they're there for about 3 hours. They go out on a little hike out around the campground. Chanel falls in the middle of the forest and has a seizure, and they just keep on walking and go back to camp while Chanel's out in the forest having a freaking seizure on the forest ground. And then when they get back, they count off and Chanel's not there. Oh my gosh, where's Chanel? They go backtrack into the forest and there's Chanel on the ground having a freaking seizure. They bring her back in. Then the nurse, the medic came, and they did what they were supposed to do, and then they called us. Okay, so that's typical of them not following through, them not taking responsibility, them not following the IEP or a medical plan, them failing us, which happens all the time. right? Not implementation of the IP, lying to us, misleading us, misguiding us, horror stories. Okay. So anyway, what happened was I immediately went up there and picked her up. It was in Lake Arrowhead. We drove up there and got her and brought her home. And never again did I ever trust them to do something like that. I could never send Chanel on a camp or something away unless I was there with her. Okay. So, and she had her 101 aid. I set everything up. And the only reason why I did it is because the grade school, her teacher, her sixth grade teacher, I had a good relationship with her. I knew her. She had my other kids. We got along and she begged me. She said, Valerie, please let Chanel go. Please don't let her miss out on this. She should be there. She should go. You got to trust us. You got to let her go. And I let her go. And I got let down. So that's my horrific story. So I know where you guys are coming from. So I had a lot of past to put behind me to build a collaborative IEP team with my. So I'm just giving you that example to let you guys know. I know where you're coming from. It's hard to put the past behind you, but the end result in getting your kid what they need far surpasses holding a grudge and hating their guts and thinking all of them are our enemies. And because what's that going to do? You're never going to get what your kid needs that way. Okay. Number two, the justice comes when you have succeeded in obtaining the supports, placement, and services your child needs. And that's the end result. That's where the justice comes. That's where the retribution and the balancing of all the wrong that they did, the justice comes when your kid starts to learn, when your kid has an amazing IEP, when you have a collaborative team and everybody's cheering on your child when they're progressing, and you have a trust finally relationship with the people on your team, and everything changes. Number three, you are working with human beings within a bureaucratic system. And that's why I say, you guys, not every single person on your team is a bad person or against you. There's lots of people on your team that are for you, that love your kid, that want to help, but they aren't allowed to do a lot of stuff that they would love to do. Like they would love to go outside the box of what their hands are tied. They're only allowed to do certain things. They're not allowed to talk to parents outside and go, you need to ask for this. I think this goal is wrong. To coach parents, they will get in trouble if they do that. Now, there are people on your team that hate us, that don't like us, that are adversarial with us, and that are working against us. Absolutely, there are those people. But not every one of them are that way. And I've had a lot of parents just think every single person sitting at that table is my enemy. But that's not necessarily true, you guys. Even if they look like they're not helping you in the meeting, they might in their heart really want, they're not against you. So just keep that in mind, that we're working with human beings. And if you get that human being, that team member on your side, that's the goal, to get everybody on your side to start helping you, collaborating with you, working with you, believing in where you're going, where you want to go with your IEP. That's the goal. Number four, parent advocates of special needs children are called to be pioneers of change. So you guys, we got a special needs kid, and we got him for a reason. And I feel very strongly about this, that those were the cards we were dealt. And so we need to step up to the plate and learn how to fight for our kids and learn how to be pioneers of change in special education, because special education is broken. And if parents just roll over and just sit there at the table and let them talk at you and tell you what they're going to do and stick the IP in front of you and tell you to sign it, and you just aimlessly and innocently sign it, then nothing's ever going to change in special ed. So the more parents that learn to advocate, learn to stand up to the corruption, learn to hold them accountable, learn to write partial agreements, learn to write compliance complaints, then we're going to see some changes in special education. So how to play the IEP game. so so why doesn't the school district give my child what they need? So almost every parent, when I first talk to them initially, they will ask me this question: why doesn't the school district just give our kids what they need? Why do they play this game? Why is it like this? Why is it so hard? Well, the reason is because the school district is a bureaucratic institution. Bureaucratic institutions are all about power, are all about funding, are all about the gatekeepers who hold the keys to open the door to saying, okay, we're going to pay for you to get vision therapy. Okay, we're going to pay for you to go to Linda Mood Bell. Okay, we're going to allow you to get an AAC device for your kid. So it's about power and control and money. And that's a bureaucratic institution. It's not about our kids. It's about the bureaucratic institution. Every school site has its own culture, meaning that every school site, it really, whenever the school opens, depending on how long that school has been there and open, every school site creates its own little way of doing things, right? And it has to do with the principals. And usually, even if one principal leaves and another principal comes in, those cultures remain. And it's a weird thing, but it's so true. I've seen it over and over again over the past 25 years. Is, oh, at this school site, this is the way they like to do it, and at this school site, this is the way they like to do it. But I don't give a crap what their stupid school culture is, because IDEA and state law is federal and state law. And they don't get to say, oh, I'm sorry, but we don't do the IEP like that at this school site, or we don't do it like that at this district. We do it like this. No, I don't think so. You do it the way your state says you're supposed to do it, and the way IDEA mandates you to do it. So, just beware of every school site's little culture that they have, little ways they do things. If it's in violation of state and federal law, then culture means nothing. Okay. When they say no, it doesn't mean no. I talk about that all the time. You guys know that. No never means no. It's just the first scripted response. That's simply a formality that they give. At most times when parents ask for something, they're going to say no. And then they want to see, are you going to appeal it? What are you going to do now, parent? How are you going to move forward? Are you just going to accept the no and go, well, they said no, so now I have to give up? No, there's always a way to get to the yes. Always a way to get to the yes. And I always get to the yes. It might take me a month, it might take me 2 months, it might take me a year, but I will eventually get to the yes, because I don't give a crap how many times they say no. They will evaluate your knowledge of special education and treat you accordingly. Talked about that lots of times too, where when parents go into an IEP, they'll immediately be sizing you up and evaluating how much does this parent know about their parent rights, how much does this parent know about special ed, about the IEP, and they will treat you accordingly. If you know nothing, they will take full advantage of you knowing nothing. If they realize you know something about your parent rights, they'll tread a little bit more carefully and they'll test you to see, okay, well, how much does she really know? They're constantly testing parents to see how far they can get, how much misinformation they can give and you accept it, how many no's they can give you before you give up. They are testing us. They test me constantly. Well, if you have an attorney, they're testing the attorney. They're always taking advantage. You give them, a tiny bit, and they're gonna take a mile. So, this is the game, the name of the game. So if it isn't documented in writing, it never happened. So again, everything needs to be followed up with an email or a letter. Every time you talk to somebody, you follow it up with an email. Thank you for our phone conversation we had this morning. This is what we discussed, and this is what I understand we agreed upon. If this is not correct, please let me know. And it becomes a paper trail that you can use later to hold them accountable. that also goes for IEPs. And I get more into documentation in other presentations, but just know this, that everything needs to be in writing or it never happened. Understand the IEP document and IEP meeting process, which is a whole nother presentation for me to teach you about the IEP document. What is it? How do you understand it? And the IEP meeting process, which is also the same order as the IEP document. That's how they hold IEP meetings as well, the agenda. Okay, so dispel the myths of misinformation that gambles with your child's future. So here's some of the myths, which we could also kind of call culture of a school district or a school, but myths and culture can be very similar. But these myths are widespread. I mean, this is like everybody thinks this is real, and it's not. Okay, so my child must be at least 2 years behind to be eligible for an IEP. Complete myth. It is ridiculous. That's not written anywhere, but everybody believes this is true. They say it billions of times. They tell parents, when parents go, I think my child needs an IEP. Oh no, your child's not 2 years behind yet, so they won't qualify. It's just completely wrong. It has nothing to do with how far your child is below grade level to be eligible for an IEP, you guys. Nothing to do with it. My IEP team told me my child could not be placed in general education classroom. Again, a big myth. If your child can learn in a special education classroom, if you want your child in a special education classroom, if it would be appropriate for your child to be in a special ed class, it's a discussion. It's of least restrictive environment discussion. And it's also a civil right of a parent to ask their child to be in general education. It's a big topic that isn't for really another presentation, but it's simply not true that your child cannot be placed in general ed if you ask. I was told that the district did not have an aide available to provide for my child. Who cares? They have to have an aide for your kid. If your kid is eligible for an aide, if you get an aide assessment or an FBA, functional behavior assessment, that says your child is in need and qualifies for an aide, they have to provide you with an aide. That is just a BS excuse to have parents go, oh, they don't have an aide, so I guess my kid doesn't get one. That's just so insane. You guys, they can get whatever they need for your child. And that's a lie anyways, because they have aides, okay? I can't tell you how many times parents tell me that. It's just laughable. Okay, we don't do it that way at this school. We don't have that service here. We do it differently in this district. All of those excuses, just outlandish excuses of how to deny, how to mislead parents, how to get parents off their back and just go away. These ridiculous statements that they give. Prior to the meeting, parents, you facilitate your child's IEP meeting. So you take charge of your IEP meeting. You don't just go and sit there and allow them to run the show. You have full participation in the meeting as well, in the preparation, in the actual meeting, and following up after the meeting. So prior to the meeting, parents, you're always going to request in writing that you want an IEP. And within 30 days, they have to schedule it and have it within a 30-day time frame from the date that you requested in writing. Now, this is California I'm talking about. If you're in another state, you may have a different timeline, but there's always a timeline for requesting an IEP meeting that they must hold the meeting by. In writing, request to be emailed a copy of the assessment reports prior to your meeting. If you're going to have assessment reports reviewed at your IEP meeting, you have the right to receive and have disclosed to you assessment reports prior to your meeting, but you must request them in writing or they're not going to give them to you. Number 3, IEP invitation. which is you will get emailed to you. Sometimes they don't. If they don't, it's a violation. They are required to provide an IEP invitation that confirms all IEP team members who will be in attendance at the meeting. Okay, and it also gives the time frame. The meeting will start at this time, the meeting will end at this time, and then it will have everybody's names and their positions of who is going to be in attendance at the meeting. It'll also have the purpose of the IEP meeting at the top. The purpose of the meeting is an annual IEP. The purpose of the meeting is an amendment to review the speech and language assessment. It'll have the purpose, it'll have the time, start and date, and it'll have the people, attendees at the meeting. Now, you're going to request by your to your program specialist that you want a 2-hour time frame at your meeting. They have to provide you a 2-hour time frame. They might argue with you and tell you they don't want to, but they still have to provide it for you so you can fight for it and demand it. You can also make sure that you want every single person in attendance at your IEP meeting. You don't want to excuse anybody unless you're never going to talk about whatever that person's service is. So the only time you'll agree to excuse someone is if there's nothing they have to say, you have no questions for them, and you're never going to talk about whatever that person does at the IEP. And that usually doesn't really happen. Sometimes it does, but just be very careful about excusing someone if that person's a member of your team. It depends on the agenda. Okay. Develop your parent agenda for the meeting and email it to your program specialist prior to the meeting. So you make your parent agenda, and that what it's included in your agenda is all of your requests that you want to make. What do you want changed? Do you want assessments? Do you want to have a new goal written? Do you want to have accommodations added? Are you concerned about bullying? Whatever you're concerned about, your requests and your concerns, and your parent statement, which goes, if it's an annual, they will include a parent statement. So that is your parent agenda that you're going to give to your program specialist prior to the meeting. And this is, again, reaching out in good faith to work with your program specialist, to collaborate with them, because I can't tell you guys how much this really promotes successful IEPs for me when I speak on behalf of parents, because I work with the program specialist very tightly and closely. I talk to them about the problems on the case. I will review the agenda with them so that we can work together prior to the meeting. And some of the problems that I have on there, she'll go, okay, we can fix that, Valerie. That's no problem. Oh, you want to add assistive technology? Okay, well, I'll invite the assistive technology specialist to the meeting so we can talk to her about that request of the parent. You can work together to make it go more smoothly and expedite requests that you have. Number 5, email your notice to tape to the meeting. You always want to tape record your meeting 24 hours prior to the IEP. You just send an email saying the subject line is notice to tape, and you say, please be advised, I will be tape recording my child's IEP meeting. Thank you. See you at the meeting. That's all you got to do. And then that's your notice to tape. Now, again, in California, that's the way we do it. In other states, you might have different regulations for taping an IEP meeting. Ask questions to clarify the jargon. So don't be afraid to ask questions to clarify, you guys. They use billions of acronyms constantly. Everybody has their different language. Speech pathologists have their language. Occupational therapists have their language. Educators have their language. Everybody's got their own language. Okay. Psychologists, they got their own language. So how are we supposed to understand and know all of these different terms and words? We're not. So, but we can learn them. And the only way you're going to learn them is to ask questions. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't feel like you're stupid if you want to ask a question, because believe me, half of those people, I can guarantee you at the IEP table, that's not their specialty. When another person's talking, They don't know what that person's talking about either most of the time. But they just sit there. They don't ask the question because it's not their specialty. But it's going to become your specialty because you need to become an expert on all of these different areas. And the only way you can is to start learning. And what I also recommend is I talk to these people outside of meetings. I call these people on the phone. If we have an assessment, many times I'll call that person that did the assessment and I'll talk about the assessment. I'll ask them questions about it. I'll get clarification on things. So again, it's communicating, it's collaborating, it's reaching out to people, it's building relationships. Place a picture of your child in the middle of the table. This is a strategy that I do many times, especially when it's a very adversarial meeting. And the purpose of that is when you place the picture of your child in the middle of the IEP table, then guess what? The focus is on your beautiful little child's face. That's what the IEP is about. It's not about the stupid power plays. It's not about someone's feelings getting hurt because you offended them, because you asked a damn question. It's not about the funding. It's not about, oh, I'm the principal of the school site and I run the show here. It's not about any of those things. It's about a beautiful child who needs services and supports to learn. It's about their future. It's about them, us building on their strengths so they can leave high school and get a job after high school and go on and have a successful life. That's what it's about. So it really brings the focus back on our child, especially when things aren't going so well for you and your IEP team. Number 8, make a diagram of the table with team members' names. So this is a strategy that I used to use a lot when I would go to, and I still sometimes will now, but it's much more difficult. The purpose of that is when I'm in a real live IEP meeting and I go to an IEP that I don't know anybody on that team, I have no clue who they are. So there could be 12, 15 people. Sometimes there's more sitting around that table. So when they start introducing themselves, I draw a picture of the table, however that table is, and then wherever they're seated, I write their name and I write their title of who they are. So during the meeting, I can be looking and I'll know, oh, that's the psych, and I wrote their name down because the psych was sitting at the end of the table on the left-hand side. And so then I know who I'm talking to, and when they're talking, I know who they are, and I can address them by their name. It's just a way. You got to build relationships with these people. You got to know their names. You got to know who they are. You got to know what they do. So again, it's just a good way, especially if new people, if you have a new team, if you have a new people coming on your team, it's very important to learn who they are and what their name is. Okay, and to be professional in a meeting. Okay, so that was that one. Okay, build relationships with your team. So contact your program specialist. Build a relationship with your program specialist so you can discuss your parent agenda and the purpose of the IEP meeting, why you're calling an IEP meeting. You're going to request to invite additional team members in order to address an agenda item. I talked about that already. Say you're going to ask for a new assessment and you want the assistive technology specialist to come to the meeting so you can talk about the assessment and what you're looking for. It expedites things instead of you just throwing that at them at a meeting and them going, okay, well, we'll have to get you a assessment plan, and the assistive technology specialist is going to have to call you and ask you questions about what you want. All that takes time and it stretches it out. These are ways to expedite your requests. You do not agree to excuse any IEP team member. I already talked about that. 2-hour time frame confirmation and any additional concerns you may have. So strategies to win what you want. Don't be intimidated to sign your IEP. This is huge, you guys. If anything that you get out of advocating, if you learn how to write a partial agreement, it's the most powerful advocacy step that any parent could ever do to win what you want for your child. And I don't know how many times I've talked about this, and parents always come back and say they want me to sign the IEP, even though we wrote a partial agreement. They always want you to sign the IEP, you guys, always. But you don't have to sign the IEP when you write a partial agreement. A partial agreement is your signature, and it's in lieu of you signing your signature on the IEP document. If you write the partial agreement properly, which I give the script, I give the complete outline and script and template of a partial agreement on the Parent Brigade website, how to write a partial agreement. It will say in it, this partial agreement serves as my signature to move forward and implement my child's IEP. Now, why is that so important? Because the second you sign the IEP document, even if you sign where it says, I agree except for, or I don't agree, the second you sign at the bottom of that document, they stamp it approved and attested. They're done. They wash their hands of you. They don't need to talk to you ever again until you call another IEP meeting. What the heck? I disagreed with 5 things, and you guys, we haven't resolved it. Well, they don't care because you signed your damn IEP. It was approved and attested. Approved and attested means that the state requires a signature on the IEP. So they don't give a shit, you guys, if you signed on line 1A, line 1B, or line 1C that says, I agree in all, in full. I'm happy as a clam. I agree in full. Line 1A. Line 1B, I agree in part. I agree except for blah, 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 blah. 1B. Line 1C, I disagree and I don't approve for this IEP. But you sign that bottom page, approved and attested, done. They don't care what you disagreed with. The partial agreement forces their hand because you didn't sign your IEP. You wrote a letter, a partial agreement document that says, I want you to implement my child's IEP, move forward, except for, here's my list of things I disagree with. But they didn't get a signed IEP, so now you guess what they have to do? They have to resolve those 5 things on your partial agreement to get you to sign your IEP, because the state makes them get your signature. They're going to get in trouble if they have too many unsigned IEPs in their district. That's why they pressure you so much to sign the IEP. And that is the value of writing a partial agreement. Okay. So then you call another meeting to resolve the issues that you're in dissent as listed in the partial agreement. And then if you still can't get those issues resolved, you can write a California Department of Education compliance complaint if the issues are not resolved. So those are the biggest and most strong advocacy steps a parent can take. And so this is just a picture of Chanel, her graduating with her high school diploma with honors, when they told me that she would never read, she would never write, she would never talk, she would never be successful in school, and she would have to be put in an institution. And she graduated with honors, and they were all wrong. And Chanel talks beautifully. She reads, she writes, she is amazing. And then she went on to get her dog grooming certificate, her California dog grooming certificate, and became a dog groomer. She's a little sick of dog grooming now, because now she's 29 years old. So this was, a while ago. She was a dog groomer for years, and now she's going into dog behavior. She wants to be a dog behavioralist, a dog trainer. So she is actually enrolling in right now, as we speak, training, a dog behavioralist school to get her dog training certificate. So just know, you guys, that their low expectations, their bleak predictions of your child means nothing. They cannot predict the future. They do not know what your child is capable of. Standardized tests do not reflect what our children's ability and IQ level is. And you don't listen to any of that. And you have high expectations for your child, and you believe in your child. And we cannot foretell the future. Only God knows the future. So you can have successful special education too, guys, for your child. So that's my presentation, you guys, from emotional parent to empowered advocate. And thank you for listening. And now I'm going to be taking questions from the Parent Brigade members. So, parents, if you'd like to become a Parent Brigade member and be able to speak with me twice a month and discuss issues like this to learn how to become a powerful parent advocate for your child, please join the Parent Brigade. And I can't wait to see you there. So, thank you.